Welcome back. So one of the big questions as you're building out your store and developing relationships with your customers is, who do they see when they are visiting your store? Who do they think of as the representative of your store? And that's going to be really important when it comes to who you are sending emails from. So you have a couple of choices. When you send out emails to your customers, you can utilize a person's name. You can use the brand name or the business name of the website, the store, or you can use a combination of both. But it's important that whichever you choose, that you are consistent in terms of the experience that your customers have when they're visiting the store. So if they're visiting the store and it's wineandgarden.com and they receive an email from Joe Smith, do they know that Joe Smith is related to or associated with that store? If they don't, then you need to make sure that either Joe Smith is plastered all over the website and that Joe is sort of emblematic representative of the store, or you don't want to be using his name. So those are the sort of choices that you need to be considering as you are deciding a very crucial question. Now, there are positives and negatives to either one. People are often more likely to look at emails when it's from an actual person versus seeing a brand name or a business name. They may, automatically know that it's a promotional email and disregard it. So figuring out exactly what type of relationship you want to establish with your customers and understand the implications of choosing one or the other is important. Now, there's a third alternative, and I'll show you that a little bit later in example, but it's using both, right? So Joe from Wine and Garden could be an option that you might consider. All right, let's move on to a really important topic, because if you are going to be sending out emails, one of the most important elements of sending out emails is getting them opened up. And the most important part of getting somebody to decide if they're going to open up an email or not is your subject line. Subject lines are very, very important because they are the first thing that somebody is going to look at before they decide, does it go in the trash bin or does it get opened? And so we're going to dive a little bit into how to utilize the subject line real estate now, and we'll take a look at some factors that you might want to consider. Now, because you are sending out emails to customers or people who have signed up to be recipients of a newsletter that you're sending out, you want to make sure that first they actually see the emails, that they see the subject line. So if you are sending to people who are using Gmail or some similar service, very often those platforms are filtering the emails that are coming into somebody's inbox into different folders. And that can be something that either, Gmail automatically will take all of the emails that it identifies as coming from a business, and they'll put it into the promotional tab. And so if somebody does not go over and click on that promotion tab and look at the emails in there, all of those businesses are missing out on an opportunity to have those communications read. So you want to find ways to try to avoid getting put into spam, into the promotions tab, into the trash, obviously, and filtered out of the inbox. And one of the best ways to do so is avoid using words that are going to send any red flags to those filters. So you want to try to avoid using any language that might suggest that it's promotional. Things like guarantee or free or sale, those are just dead giveaways when it comes to words that are going to tip off filters and get your emails sent in the wrong direction. So instead, I would advise that you try to use language that's going to be inviting and not really sales focused, just as a way to get people to take a look at your emails in the first place. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that effectively. Now, another great rule when it comes to subject lines is to keep things nice and tight, short and sweet. The more concise you can be, the more likely it is that somebody's going to read the words and decide whether they're going to want to click on something or not. A longer, more complicated syntax or more words is going to be more work for somebody to do as they're scrolling through their inbox. On average, most of us can absorb something like 5 to 7 words as we're scrolling through different emails or posts, and so you want to try to be as concise as possible with your subject line. So one of the ways that you can definitely grab somebody's attention is to personalize the subject line, or to just make it fun. And here are a few examples of how you're able to do that. Now, the first one would be to use somebody's name. And I grabbed this screenshot from, I think it's MailChimp, one of the email service providers, who did a study on how much the use of somebody's first name in an email subject line increases the chances of them opening it. And these were across a whole bunch of different industries. Government obviously was the most, although I imagine that people who see a personalized email from a government agency might get concerned or alarmed, and so obviously that makes a lot of sense. Then you see a whole bunch of other areas and a diminishing return, and of course legal for some reason is in the negative numbers. But retail or software, computer and electronics, things like that, you're seeing pretty good rates. And so while it's not hugely different, it does have a positive impact overall using somebody's first name. Another option is using somebody's location. So, basically what this does is it helps somebody register the fact that, if they associate with a place or a school that they went to or something like that, it's more likely that they're going to connect with that word in that subject line. And so it's a really helpful tool to be able to connect and get their attention by either using their name or personalizing it with the city where they're living, things like that. Now, another way to do this is to get their attention through the use of imagery or emojis. And these have become more and more popular, and they're incredibly effective when used sparingly, right? So here's a good example of the pizza emoji on the top, or the splash sail on the bottom. Those are a couple of ways that you can utilize it. Now, you also see on this image, and we've seen this on the last two actually, that not only do you see the subject line, but you actually see a little bit of the copy that's inside of the email, sort of what's called the preview text. And that's another place where you have the opportunity to leverage real estate and get or reinforce a message right in front of your readers. So recognize the fact that not only is the subject line really useful, but in the case of this second example from Coupon Cabin, the preview text, or they call it the pre-header, is another place where you can utilize additional language. And in fact, they've sort of tied the language in the subject line together with the language that they have in the pre-header. All right, so let's talk about some types of subject lines that you might consider. and we'll give you some examples of them as well. So one that I love using, and I've created a swipe file of email subject lines that I've been collecting over the years, and so here's a couple of examples of things that I really love. One is the fear of missing out. And so here are a couple that I found in this category. One is, your prescription is expiring, right? So it alerts somebody to the fact that they need to do something about it or they're going to miss out. The second one is, you're missing out on points, right? So maybe it's a credit card or it's an airline or something that gives out points and somebody has not signed up for the program. Now, you could do that in your store as well, right? You can give people frequent buyer points and have a program to encourage them to come back to the store and buy with some frequency. So those are a couple of great ideas when it comes to fear of missing out on something. Another approach is curiosity. Here are a couple that I really like. What they eat in prison. Now, it's kind of a strange subject line, isn't it? And for somebody who's curious, they're probably going to go, I guess I want to read this. Another one is just intriguing. Don't open this. A lot of times people like to do exactly the opposite of what they're told. And so it's great to send out something that's a little bit sort of challenging to the reader sometimes, saying, hey, don't do this. And of course, they'll do it. Just out of spite, right? Something funny. I found this one, which was, I think, from a travel magazine or something. It said, scratch and sniff your way to paradise. And then here's another one. Yes, I'm pregnant. You can stop staring at my belly now. That was, I think, for a pregnancy website or something. I can't quite remember what it was, but I thought it was pretty hilarious. And you can speak directly to your recipient as if they were somebody who was a personal friend. It's a great sort of way to engage somebody by using that familiar tone in your subject lines. Vanity, you can trade on their vanity as well. Don't wear last year's styles, right? If you're have an apparel store and you're selling things that are the current style, well, you want to maybe alert people that you have the new stuff that they're interested in, and they don't want to be wearing something that everybody in their circles of influence recognizes is so last year, right? Here's another line that I like using a lot for retail. This is gift inspiration for the discerning, and then fill in what the blank, right? So the discerning wine lover, the discerning cyclist, the discerning knitter, whatever it may be. People who will recognize themselves as discerning in whatever niche they identify with will want to open that. Then there's people who experience greed, right? They want to get their hands on something. So if you offer them priority access in the subject line, or telling them that they get a head start on summer, for example, those are other great ways to sort of say, hey, I'm going to let you in on the inside opportunity that's inside this email. Open up, right? So here are a handful of things that I just found in my inbox and took some screenshots, and I wanted to share some of them. So the first one is from a wine shop that I buy stuff from locally here. And the email subject line is, a stunning introduction to a fantastic Burgundy vintage. Kind of cool. If I'm interested in Burgundy, I'll probably notice that word. Stunning introduction. That's kind of cool. And then you can see the preview text, or the pre-header. It looks like it's a tasting note. It says the wine opens up with a lemon gold color in the glass, followed by rich golden, and I don't know if that's really helpful. It's certainly not supporting my interest to open up the email, but maybe if I find, the description of lemon gold color appealing, I might want to open up the email. Who knows? The next one is from a website called Wine Folly, and they have a little image, right, a little heart. This week, wine, sex, chocolate. That can be pretty appealing. But then look what happens. They did not put any pre-header in, and as a result, I see all this strange code in there instead. So this is something that you want to watch out for if you have the ability to manage what that preview looks like. You want to make sure that you don't have something like this showing up. Then here's a software tool that I use. The subject line is how to use micro-influencers to spark sales. All right, so I have a business and I am interested in promoting sales. This might be of interest to me. And then the pre-header says, are you having a hard time finding influencers to help evangelize your brand? Never fear. And it looks like there's a solution. Now, this, I think, is just the opening text of the email, but it's quite useful because it supports the idea that I see there in the subject line. Dollar Shave Club, 3 million members, one box, just $5. Right, that's a curiosity one. I don't quite know exactly what that means. And then I can see here, and I think this is the opening line as well, the DSC Starter Kit has everything you need for an unimaginably smooth shave. Try it for yourself. And so it goes on, and I think that's probably just the text inside the email. Here's one from a marketer, an online marketer, whose name you may recognize there. Normally $888, temporarily $297. The extremely limited time $700 off what I paid offer is still available. So this is, again, intriguing. Oh boy, I get to save a bunch of money, but you notice that what's not there is the word save or discount or anything that might tip off these spam filters. And then here's a one from a theater-related email. It says, see Nathan Lane and Andrew Garfield in Angels. Now, if you're in the know, if you're a theater fan, those names might mean something to you, and you know what it's about, and you might get excited. And then you can see the preview text there. The pre-header says, previews begin tomorrow. The time to get tickets is now. And that's all in all caps. I kind of find that annoying. It's not very effective to have it in all caps. It's a lot harder to read ultimately, especially if you're on a mobile device. So those are just a handful of examples when it comes to the subject line. And I would, recommend playing around with ideas, testing out different things, seeing what emails are getting opened and what are not based on your subject line. It's the first line of defense or first opportunity for you to get noticed in the inbox and get read in the inbox. In our next video, we'll be talking about the different types of emails that you can be using to communicate with your prospects and customers.